Good morning to the newcomers. Well, I suggest we start because we've got a rather busy schedule. So welcome to all of you to this Accelerator session that is organized alongside the World Circular Economy Forum. So thanks a lot to Citra and to Nordic Innovation for this great opportunity for us to organize this event just after the main event that took place in Helsinki this week. So my name is Simon Gresset. I'll be moderating this session on the circular economy in cities and especially how to implement the circular economy. Yeah, so maybe a few points before we start. If you can indicate who you are and your organization, that would be great. So we are recording this webinar, so it will be available afterwards. And please use the chat if you have questions, if you'd like to share your experiences, if you'd like to share projects, please use the chat. So you can see the chat button here at the top, and you'll be able to raise your hands during the Q&A session. If you have any technical issue, please write it in the chat or write directly to my colleague Alessandra. So the goal of today's session is first to take stock of what is happening in cities with regards to circular economy, and also to show how crucial their role is with regard to the circular transition. We also want to share experiences. So we'll have different cities. We'll share their experience, the best practices with regards to circular economy. We also want to compare trajectories between three regions, Europe, Latin America, and Africa. And then we'd like maybe to discuss on how to scale up the circular transition and how we can harness co-benefits such as biodiversity protection or nature conservation, which are the topics of the World Circular Economy Forum of this year. So a quick look at the agenda for today. So the first block, the first hour will be dedicated to Europe. So I start with the first presentation myself, giving the results of a study we did on circular economy in European cities. Then we'll have a testimony from Maribor with Igor, and then another testimony from Espoo in Finland. And then we'll move to a more global perspective, to Africa and to Latin America, with first a short introduction from Josh Newton from the EMF, and then we'll have a testimony from the city of Cape Town in South Africa. Then we'll have a short video from Sao Paulo in Brazil. Sadly, the person couldn't make it finally, so it will be a video and not a proper speech. And finally, we'll have some time for questions and answers, and then a discussion with the speakers. So that's a quite busy schedule, but that would be quite interesting. Maybe a few words on speakers. So myself, I'm Simon Gressel. I'm Circular Economy Officer at Eclair Europe. Then we'll have Igor Kos, who work for the city of Maribor and for the Regional Economic Development Agency, Podravie, who is advisor. Then we'll have Tessa and Mia from the city of Espoo in Finland. Then we'll have Josh Newton from the EMF, who is city program manager. Then we'll have Dr. Shirley Malema from the city of Cape Town. And last but not least, we'll have my colleague Maria Alonso Martinez, who will be able to answer questions related to Sao Paulo. So welcome to all speakers, and thank you very much for being here. And I'll start directly the first presentation about the European Circular Cities Declaration and the main finding from the studies we've carried out. So quickly, I work at Eclair. Eclair is a network of local and regional authorities. In Europe, we've got more than 160 members. We are based in Freiburg in Southwest Germany, and we work on a number of topics, including circular economy. So we believe that the circular, you all know what the circular economy is. You all know that the way we produce nowadays, the way we consume is highly unsustainable. And so we believe that creating material loops, shortening material loops will allow us to reduce resource extraction, improve production processes, and producing less waste, and will allow us to stay planetary boundaries. We also believe that cities have a crucial role to play because they, for instance, emit a lot of greenhouse gas emissions because they produce a lot of waste, and they also have a number of levers at their disposal. So that's why we advocate for the circular transition in cities. So at ICLEI, we support cities. We try to create and to share knowledge, to create connection between cities, and to provide technical support. So we do this through projects funded by the European Commissions and through the Circular Cities Declaration. So the Circular Cities Declaration is a commitment document by which local and regional authorities show their commitment to accelerating the transition to a circular economy. So it's a really simple two-page document. We launched this initiative with a series of support partners, including the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is also here, Circular Flanders, who is also participating, or ORA Podravier, for instance. So really robust, solid support partners. And when cities sign this declaration, they commit to using the different levers that they have at their disposal, such as developing strategies, for instance, or embedding circularity within urban planning. So we have 10 commitments in total. And so within the Circular Cities Declaration, we carry out different activities. And one of those activities was to study circular economy in cities. And we published recently a report, which, as far as we know, is the widest assessment of circular economy practices in Europe to date. And so this report includes analysis on the main trends on circular economy, the main challenges that cities are facing. And we are also looking at 40 different cities on their strategies, the governance structures that are in place, the projects they are carrying out, and so on. And so we published this report with support from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And so my presentation result will be based actually on the results of this report. So quickly, here are the 40 cities that appears in this report. So on the map on the right-hand side, there are the cities which are in pink. So we really have data on cities from all over Europe, from Finland to Portugal to Turkey. So it's pretty diverse, and it gives really a really good overview of what the circular economy means at the local level. So one first finding, which is not so much of a surprise, but which is nevertheless quite interesting, is that there are two sectors in which cities are particularly active. They are the construction sector, the built environment, and on the other hand, the bioeconomy. So it was quite striking to see the number of actions that cities were carrying out across the two sectors. Then they're also acting in other sectors, but not as much. We also found that cities use many different policy levers, many different policy instruments. So we used the taxonomy developed by Circular Economy and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So you'll find the link here. And we found that the two most widely used levers were the development of circular infrastructure and the use of public procurement. So it's quite of an interesting finding. And at the opposite, we found that cities rarely use, for instance, regulation-related instruments. So quite often interesting findings. So we analyzed all the data we collected from cities, and we clustered all the information, the data, into 8 main trends. So I won't have the time to go through all the trends today, but I'd like to maybe focus on some of them, which I found quite interesting for the implementation of circular economy in cities. The first one is the development of circular strategies. Which is crucial to be able to really engage with local actors and to articulate different actions. So it's a key success factor to have a circular strategy. This is really what the report shows to really be able to transition to a circular economy. So then there are different types of strategies. Some cities have a dedicated circular economy strategy. Some other cities integrate their strategy within, for instance, climate plans. In terms of governance, the key success factors are really, it's crucial to have some political support. It's also important to have either a dedicated person or a dedicated team, which in turn is able to really engage with other internal departments. It's really crucial to bring everyone around the table. It's also important to use all the policy levels and not forget any, for instance, public procurement. Yeah. Also crucial to define targets, measurable objectives, to be able to monitor progress, but also to evaluate the results and the impacts. And finally, it's also crucial to engage with stakeholders during the making of the strategy, but also during the implementation. So we've got plenty of examples in the report. Here I've got two particularly interesting examples. The first one is from Leuven in Belgium. And so in Leuven, they've developed a strategy. And actually this circular economy strategy, which is Leuven Circulaire, is a building block, of their climate plan. And so one of the goals, obviously, of this strategy will be to contribute to achieving climate neutrality. So it shows it's a good example of integration of circular economy and climate policy. So there is a link here. Another really inspiring example is Circular Copenhagen, which really has tried to define quantifiable targets, and in Copenhagen they really try to assess the results, the impacts of every different actions to make sure it contributes to achieving the targets. So it's quite inspiring, and we've got many more examples in the report. Another key trend that we found by doing this analysis is the fact that cities are really investing in circular infrastructure in order to close material loops. So this includes many different things. For instance, small-scale equipment, but also large-scale production and treatment facilities. We also include in this category digital infrastructure. And this infrastructure may allow to valorize resources directly, to allow resource cycling, but also in some other cases, it will enable other actors to do so. So this infrastructure is really across material streams and sectors. So I mentioned construction, for instance, before. I mentioned the bioeconomy, but could also be on textile, for instance. For instance, the city of Malmö in Sweden set up a textile recycling facility. So we really have different examples across sectors. In some cases, it's directly the municipality that invest and that control the infrastructure in question. In some other cases, it's working with the private sector. And one of the main conclusions of this investment in circular infrastructure is the fact that this is highly capital intensive. And so it means that cities need financial support to be able to keep doing so, and even to upscale this infrastructure. It's particularly essential because this infrastructure will allow then other actors, such as small businesses, citizens, and so on, to themselves move toward a circular economy. So we would have plenty of examples, some quite traditional examples, maybe related to waste management. But here I wanted to highlight two that I find particularly interesting. The first one comes from Finland, from the city of Oulu, who has set up a circular economy store where people can buy upcycled products, where they try to promote the sharing economy, and also where they try to educate, to build capacity with, for instance, trainings and learnings on how to repair their own products and appliances. So there is a link. It's quite interesting. Another good examples come from Grenoble in France with Le Pôle Air, where they are really dedicating 3 different buildings to different actors of the circular economy. with different facilities, with production and treatments facilities, but also shared offices, a shared kitchen to minimize food waste, for instance, and to really create synergies between those different actors. So there is also a link. It's an inspiring example. And finally, the last trend that I wanted to highlight, in line with one of the topic of the WCEF, which is nature, is the fact that cities are really making many efforts to make local food system more regenerative. So first, they are acting all along the food supply chain. They are working with producers, farmers. They are working with retailers, with markets, with restaurant food services. So it's really a consistent action across all the food supply chain. And so they do so first to produce more sustainably, to consume more sustainably, but they also want to improve local self-sufficiency. We've seen that with the pandemics, how reliant we were on global supply chains, even for food production. And they also want to support natural processes and kind of regenerate nature. So it's quite interesting. And they are really using different types of actions, different levels, different instruments. So I mentioned infrastructure before. We could mention, for instance, a composting facility, but they also use different tools, public procurement, awareness raising, trainings. They support local initiatives. They use the land that they have, for instance, to create organic gardens, that kind of initiative. Here again, we would have plenty of examples. Maybe a first one coming from Budapest, which try to promote community composting. So this is something that is quite common across European cities, but that is nevertheless interesting because it allows to valorize food waste, maybe in some cases green spaces waste, and also it allows really to raise awareness, to educate people on more sustainable practice. Another example comes from Turku, which through public procurement really tries to decrease the the carbon footprint of the food that is consumed in schools, in public restaurants. We also found that there were four main barriers. So quickly, the main barriers are resources, so financing, staff limitation, the difficulty to have enough political support, the difficulty to engage with all departments internally. The issue of targets and evaluation was also a major barrier for cities. And finally, the difficulty of acting circular in a system that remains mostly linear. So if any city that is attending in this webinar is interested in signing, you're more than welcome. Please let us know. It's free of charge, and any city, region, any local authority is more than welcome. Maybe quickly, if you're interested on circular economy, on maybe more specific topics, on the topic of skills, and then on the topics of nutrient recovery, we are organizing 2 events next week within the Green Week. So you're also welcome to attend. So we'll share the slides afterwards, so you'll be able to refine the events. And finally, we are working on 2 different projects, Definite CCRI and Circular Invest, for which we open a call for application. And the idea is to offer free project development assistance for cities to develop circular economy projects. So if you'd like to get some project development assistance, you're welcome to apply. And that was it. Thank you very much. So that was the first presentation, and I'm handing it over now to our first speaker, Igor, for the city of Maribor. So I'm trying to unshare my screen. Yes. Igor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will just open up the presentation. Just let me know if you can see it.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So thank you for the invitation and for this opportunity to be part of this conference. I'm coming from Maribor, Podravje region, and I will just share our experience and development of the circular economy since 2016 when we started with this development in Maribor. Just first to know, in Slovenia where we are in the northeast corner of so-called our chicken, which the shape of the country looks like. There are two larger cities, Maribor and Ptuj, and 39 additional municipalities. The population size is slightly decreasing, which is kind of a challenge for us, how to keep them here, but we believe that with further development of the circular economy, we will give the opportunity to the inhabitants to actually work in the region and not go out of the region for work, which is happening now because of the close border with Austria and proximity to Ljubljana, which is a capital city of Slovenia. Now to the case of Maribor. As I mentioned, we started 2016 with the development. The first models were kind of developed in 2015. And we worked on the two paths. One was the governance part and one was the implementation part, because one without the other doesn't make a lot of sense. We first mentioned the model for the city, which is based on the utility companies using the material streams they are creating by services for the citizens for the purposes of the city. So how can we use bio-waste for the purposes of the city? How can we use the construction waste? How can we use any other stream that is available in the city for the purposes of the city? And this is how we then came to one of the solutions. We were looking if we can establish this kind of organizational work within the municipal administration, and we established it's better to go a bit outside. So 5 utility companies established in 2017 Institute WCEF, which then took over basically the development. We were able to write the strategy for transition of Maribor to circular economy, which is available in English on the circular economy stakeholder platform. So you can just link on it and you can read it. We were fortunate enough to be part of the EU Agenda Partnership on Circular Economy, where we could kind of bottom up, top down, exchange the experience. We were part of consortium that wrote the roadmap for Slovenia on the circular economy. And on the other hand, we were able to secure some funding for some of the pilots that we described in the strategy to test the solutions in the city. Now the development has gone further. So in 2021, decision was made in the city that regional development agencies should take our experience on the regional level. So basically from the city to the regional level. And we are now part of the Regional Development Agency Podravje Maribor, where we continue to develop the same thing, this time not just for one city and 5 utility companies, but basically for 41 municipalities and plenty more of citizens living in the region. To the governance part, so as I mentioned, strategy is available on the circular economy stakeholder platform. Everybody can read it. Has been evaluated by the different organizations through time from 2018 since it was published, and some of them still think it's an example of good practice in Europe, which we are quite honored still to have it like this. As Simon was already mentioned, we were also in the group that developed Circular City Declaration, and thank you for the invitation once again. Together with the EIB, we helped a bit with the Circular City Founding Guide in the Urban Agenda Partnership on Circular Economy. And last year we were successful on the call by the European Commission on the Circular City and Regions Initiative. So Podravje was chosen to be one of 12 cities, pilots and regions inside of this program on topic of biocircular economy. which is our current activity, which foresees that we will develop the regional strategy for bioeconomy action plan, and what was missing in our strategy for the city, also financial pillar, how to implement. This is really important because the strategy without the financial backing, it's really hard to implement. So this is one of the experiences that I can share with you. You have to go the whole way. So back in 2017, when we started with the strategy, we were just aiming for the strategy and the action plan, and then we will see how things will go and how we will be able to do it. But now we learned our lesson. You have to develop these things simultaneously. So you have to set up also the financial pillar for implementation of the strategy. Otherwise, things will not go as you wish or according to the timeline that you have. We were fortunate enough to be successful in several European calls where we were able to test the solutions that were part of the strategy. So the Interreg Alpine Space project Green Cycle was the first that we were able to use. In frame of this project, we developed the strategy for the city. So this was the first corner. Then Urban Innovative Action Program project Urban Soil for Food came, where we tested solution how to mix the bio-waste with the excavated soil in the city to create the fertile soil that could be used in the urban gardens. We created on the abandoned land of 12,000 square meters community gardens where these solutions were tested, and gardens are still operational and people can still grow their own food. And we are quite happy that this project is still alive since it began in 2017. In the Cinderella, which is Horizon project, our utility company for construction tested the solution how to build a house out of the construction waste. It was done. It now serves as a laboratory for testing materials, and it was completely built out of the construction waste. So the structural elements were done by crashing the old concrete and putting it into the model. We call it the big Legos, and this was used for the walls, and the roof was reused from another building that was demolished and adjusted to this building. So complete building with the windows, with the roof, with all the elements was done in the circular way by reusing the materials. The interesting part was here that we connected this project with the Interreg Central Europe project called City Water Circle, where we tested solution by using the water from the wastewater management facility to initiate the reaction when we mix the concrete with the cement. So in the building of the blocks for the building in the Cinderella project, the wastewater was used from the wastewater facility, and this was also then tested on the accuracy from the national laboratories for the building materials, and everything worked quite fine. In Wimpole, we were able to step forward in the digitalization of the waste collection, and in DEAR program, Food Wave, then we also went into more food topic where we are educating youth, so from 15 to 35, about the importance of the local food production, local food consumption, and of course about the food waste and what can be done with the leftovers of the food that is cooked. To the current situation, we are quite happy to have two horizons active. One is Upsurge that I will present a bit more later, and the other is Humus, which deals with the soil quality in the region. So because of the intensive farming, the soil quality is going down, and with this project we are trying to show what kind of help the soil would need to be better for the food production in the long term. So what the farmers should do, not to add things that they are doing right now, but maybe change some ways to preserve the soil for the future generations for the food production. And of course, let's say one of the leads is European Green Deal, and we are trying to kind of also with every project to fulfill at least one of the strategies that are part of the Green Deal. Now back to the Upsearch project. This project is basically on the NBS solutions, so nature-based solutions, where we are testing if we can, with the targeted planting of the trees, improve local air quality in the area. So we chose the demo site, which will be active. So basically trees will be planted this autumn. Now we are through the planning phase. So the architects did the plans that you can see on the bottom picture. The area right now looks like this. So you can see very open. There is some trees, but it will be plenty more when we are finished with the demo. And the measuring station will be starting with operation, with the measurements during the summer. So we will use basically this summer, winter, and the start of the next spring to have like these base value measurements of the air quality. And then next season, when the trees start their vegetation, hopefully we will see some decrease to the base measurements and increase in the decrease of some particles and increase in the air quality. As addition to this, we are using also bees to confirm the measurements. So this is maybe some alternative technology, let's call it like that. So we are testing and analyzing the bee pollen that is collected nearby. So we will then compare the results of this analysis with the measurements of this weather station, measuring station. You can learn more about the project on the link. And as you can see, it's quite an interesting project and interesting approach. We will continue with these activities in the future. So if you are looking for exchange of knowledge or maybe some partnership in the new calls coming up, you can always give us a ring. And just on the last note, ICLE is also part of this Upsearch project, and we are really proud of the work with them. So thank you so far, and I will be later available for the comments and sharing the knowledge.
Thank you very much, Igor. So there will be a possibility then to ask questions at the end of the session. So thanks a lot. I share your strategy in the chat. I think it can be quite inspiring for people. And I'd like to hand it over to our next speakers. So this time there will be the city of Espoo in Finland. Since the WCEF is organized by Citra, we thought that it would be great to have a Finnish city, and we have the city of Espoo, with which we are working a lot, and we think it can also be really inspiring. So Tessa, Mia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Simon, and thank you for letting us be here. We're very excited to present to you our circular economy work. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Brilliant. I'll just get straight to it then. We're going to be talking about how to co-create a circular sustainable city, and the case is our own city, as in Espoo. My name's Tessa Armour, and I work as a urban sustainability and circular economy expert for the city of Espoo, and I'm here today with my colleague Mia.
Hi everyone, and greetings from Espoo. So my name is Mia Johansson, and I'm also working as Tessa's colleague, and I'm working with circular economy specifically.
A little bit about Espoo in the beginning. I'm sure you're all familiar with the location, the World Circular Economy Forum being in our neighboring city this year in Helsinki, but we're located in the north of Europe, but in southern Finland, and we're part of the Helsinki metropolitan area, but an independent city next to Helsinki. You can see Helsinki here on the right and the city of Espoo on the left. And instead of being a classic city with just one city center, Espoo is a multi-center city. So we have 5 different city centers that then give us benefits, but also give us challenges when it comes to organizing sustainable transport and other things. Just a few facts about us. Our population is about 300,000. It doesn't sound like much, I guess, in the European scale, but we're actually the second biggest city in Finland. Only Helsinki is bigger than Espoo. We're also the most fastest growing city in Finland. Last year, we grew by over 8,000 residents. The city has about 10,000 employees. and about 500 square kilometers of area, out of which about 2/3. Somebody says the slides are not moving. Are they moving for you, Simon?
I think we're still in the figures slide.
Yeah, that's what you're meant to see.
Perfect.
Perfect. So probably everybody else can see that as well. So about 2/3 of the city are water, and two out of 5 is water, and the rest is land area. As you can see from the picture as well, we got quite a long seashore and about 165 islands that make up Espoo. The 10,000 employees, the city has 10,000 employees, so that's including us who work in the city management, but also teachers, lorry drivers, everyone that is employed by the city. A little bit about the city structure. We have a city council that's politically chosen every 4 years, and a city board that's then chosen from the council members, and they hold the highest decision making in the city. We have our Espoo strategy. We call it the Espoo story, and the Espoo story is approved by the city council, and it really guides our work and sets the goals and visions for our work. We have a mayor who's not politically elected, so he doesn't change every 4 years, but he is a worker just like me and me are. We have a mayor's office, then obviously the sectors where those 10,000 employees are. So the sector for economic development, sports and culture, growth and learning sector. So that means schools, preschools, daycare. And then the urban environment sector that has like your city planning and such. We're actually located in the mayor's office. This is maybe a bit unusual for the sustainable development team. Usually, or traditionally, at least in Finland, the sustainable development is located in the urban environment sector, but we're close to the mayor due to the strong kind of sustainability goals that the city has. The mayor also likes to keep us close. So we're under the strategy and development unit, and in our lovely, in a nice way named Center of Excellence for Sustainable Development, or the Sustainable Development Team. But we obviously do cross-organizational cooperation throughout the city. Just a few words about our Espoo story and Sustainable Espoo. So like I said before, our work is guided by the Espoo story that has been approved by the City Council. You can see our sustainability vision or goals here. And these joint goals, sorry, I have a sick child at home, so if you just heard a child screaming, that's why. I'm not turning the telly up for her for this. Let's concentrate on the presentation. So these joint goals give us the mandate and backbone to kind of accelerate circular economy work inside the city. And any kind of development work, experiments, cooperation related to the Sustainable Espoo program is primarily carried out in projects. So we have a team of 30 people, 30 specialists in our sustainable development team, and we've been able to grow that big and increase the impact of our work through external funding. So we've applied for a lot of mostly EU funding, received that, been able to increase our impact, and the projects that we have will find solutions to actually get to these visions. So they help us find solutions that facilitate the daily life of our residents in Espoo and promote, for example, low carbon mobility, clean energy, circular economy, or tackle the future challenges of smart cities. Really, the goal is to find local solutions for solving global challenges. I think a lot of these goals are ones that the other cities can relate to as well.
Circular economy or circularity has long been the way to operate in Espoo, but some examples for that, for example, there are public libraries, there's circulation of biomasses, there's resource efficiency, a lot of like known examples of a long-term circular actions that have been ongoing for a long time. But since 2019 in Espoo, we have been able to start developing circularity further with the help of external funding, as Tessa mentioned, and with project funding, and with that we have gotten like an overall look to what circular economy means in Espoo and for Espoo. So in the year 2020, for example, we signed the Europe-wide Circular Economy Commitment Circular Cities Declaration. So for us, the development work on circular economy has been ongoing for only about 3 or 4 years. And in the first year or so, we focused on a lot of different areas, which then helped us to see that we cannot develop like all of the circular areas or all of the areas in circular economy there are. Well, cities have a wide range of topics or areas they can develop. So there's like construction and demolition, for example, sharing economy, biocircular economy, textiles, agriculture, and so on. So we understood during that time that we need to choose the topics that are most relevant for us in Espoo, and in turn learn from the other cities or partners of the development they are doing. So last year in the Sustainable Espoo program, Tessa mentioned earlier, we set 5 circular economy priorities for the years between 2021 to 2025. And you can see them now on the right side. So first we've got circular economy solutions for the construction life cycle. Then there's towards a waste-free Espoo. That's an ambitious goal. And then biocircular economy is one of our priorities, as is sustainable public procurement. And finally, the work related to the citizens, of course. So we've got circular and sharing economy services for the residents. Together, both related to the services of the city, as well as the companies and other organizations working in the area. We were asked to share an example of the circular actions we've taken. So I will next briefly present a showcase that sort of embodies the close link to our city strategy, circular economy priorities, and co-creation of a sustainable city. So in accordance with the Sustainable Espoo goals, becoming carbon neutral by 2030, being a model city of sustainable urban development, and being the best developer partner for sustainable and smart urban solutions, I will share an example of the development process of a new city district called Kera. This area that used to be an industrial district is now being developed into a neighborhood of sustainable development, of circular economy, and of digitalization. And it will be an area or district for 14,000 inhabitants. And we are doing this together with residents, with landowners in the area, so the land is mostly privately owned, and companies and other development partners to co-create an international example of a carbon neutral circular economy city district. And in the picture you can see on the left, you can actually see a glimpse of the former logistics center that's located in the area, and that now hosts various businesses from food production to sports activities and so on. The temporary use of this very large building is part of the evolution of the district, and one example of the circular actions that are already taking place in the district. So what have we learned in the process? Here are some main takeaways for cities of what we've presented today. First, we would like to very much point out that it's often beneficial, at least it was in our case, to find your city's viewpoint for accelerating circular economy. So there's a lot to sort of choose from, and it's difficult to sort of like make developments and sort of like get it going in all of the sectors of circular economy. So it's in our opinion like beneficial to sort of go through the criteria of what is the most influential area for your city. Second, in our case, a strong city strategy for sustainability has given us a solid base for developing circular economy. And third, we have been able to multiply our resources with the external project funding, and that helps to grow the impact of the actions taken. And last, cooperation within the city and both with the community in Espoo is the key. The challenges we face are often the same, so we are stronger together. And now finally, with the recently published Circular Cities Declaration report for 2022 that Simon presented in the beginning of this session, I want to also share with you our compilation of the circular actions taken by the city of Espoo last year, so in 2022. As part of the Circular Cities Declaration commitment that we've made, we implement 10 circular economy goals and report on our progress on a yearly basis. So this year, for the first time, we put together a compilation that covers all the measures taken by the city in 2022 in a way that we wanted to be able to share the progress with our decision makers, with the citizens and other stakeholders. So it's a visual layout sort of for the actions that we've made last year and for the improvements. So I would like to welcome you to read the report. You can access it by clicking on the box below. I guess the links work this way, and we are also very happy to hear your thoughts and your comments on the report to further be able to develop the process of the reporting and the report itself.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for listening to our presentation. If you'd like some more information, you feel free to contact us. I also put some of the links in the comment section, so you can find them there or from this presentation. So thank you very much from us, and we'll be available for questions and comments later on in the session as well.
Thank you, Mia and Tessa. That was really inspiring. So both the example of Espoo, but also Maribor before, it shows really that engaging internally with the different actors, the different departments, is crucial. Also being able to have some political support is also crucial. I think that both Maribor and Espoo also showed that using project funding, European funding in that case, but also maybe also national government funding is also a way to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. And maybe lastly, we saw that in Maribor, the focus is pretty much on the bioeconomy, in how to make a food system more circular. It seems that in Espoo, there is a strong focus on construction, on how to make new developments more circular and more sustainable. So we see two key topics for cities. So now I'd like to hand over the floor to Josh, who will tell us more about what's happening in other parts of the world, and especially in Latin America and in Africa, and see like what are the similarities and the differences with Europe. So Josh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Simon. Nice to hear from you, and so wonderful to learn more about Espoo. I've not really got deep into the case study, but the Kera Circular District is really exciting. And I'll talk a little bit about neighborhoods. I don't have any slides, and I don't intend to speak too long because I think when talking about a global perspective on the barriers and solutions faced by cities in the global south, I'm probably the person you don't want to hear from. We should hear from the cities directly. So I'll keep it brief. But as Simon mentioned, I work at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We are an international charity that develops and promotes the circular economy in order to tackle some of the biggest challenges of our time. That includes climate change, biodiversity loss, and waste and pollution. We are a network of around 3,000 organizations, so some of the largest private companies in the world, as well as public sector decision makers, research institutions, universities, and ultimately we're here to help build capacity, support collaborative opportunities, and promote the design and development of the circular economy solutions. So I'm based in Europe, and we have a lot of work in Europe. And as Simon said, we're pleased to be real supporters of the Circular Cities Declaration in Europe. But we also have a number of programs on other continents. I think about a quarter of our organization are based in North America, Latin America, and China. And through this work, we're seeing more and more cities around the world establishing circular economy programs. So on the barriers, I think it kind of reflected nicely on what Esper was saying as well of their main learnings. So this will be really helpful for the panel, but I think broadly from our experience of working with cities around the world, we're seeing kind of three main barriers. The first is around a limited awareness and understanding of the circular economy opportunity. The need to realize that this is not just a waste management or waste prevention agenda. This is not just about recycling, but this is in fact an opportunity to support economic development, help tackle goals around planning and development, and ultimately support jobs and livelihoods as well. The second is that even if cities are starting to understand the opportunities around the circular economy, there is a fundamental lack of funding and capacity and resource limitations within local government in the Global South and in Africa and Latin America. We see a need for fundamental baseline infrastructure and a need to kind of overcome key silos that exist within different departments. This is something that's shared across the world that we observe. And then the final barrier is really connected with these, and that's around top level commitment. The circular economy is increasingly being understood by political leaders, but there is still more work to do to help build that case for how this can be politically championed across continents and the world. But despite these challenges, we are seeing, as I said, cities around the world accelerating their efforts, and we will hear from two of them in just a while, Cape Town and Sao Paulo. And as I said, policymakers are increasingly recognizing the circular economy can help to deliver on the broader environmental, economic, and job creation opportunities. We always like to link our agenda with the UN SDGs, and we see how the circular economy can directly support over 10 of the SDGs, in particular resource consumption and production. And I think in terms of unlocking that and recognizing those opportunities and drivers, we are seeing three key activities that cities are using to activate and identify circular solutions more often. They include neighborhood and community level interventions, which we've already heard about in Europe, but I'll talk about briefly in a second. We're also seeing more and more work being done on supporting small business, small enterprises, providing with them support and entrepreneurship programs as well as cities starting in their own backyard. So leading by example through their own operations and their own procurement. And on that, we know the city of Cape Town funds an industrial symbiosis program and launched a green procurement action plan in 2020. This has helped lead to them committing to a circular economy action plan for the city, which I think should be is the first circular economy action plan for any African city. On the neighborhoods element specifically, I want to just talk about that as the foundation this week has published a set of articles on the opportunity around circular neighborhoods. So sometimes trying to implement the circular economy at a city level, particularly when we have many mega cities and cities of millions of people, it's very difficult to pinpoint where to start. We have a patchwork of activities across different cities. And our proposition is, what if we were to absolutely concentrate all of those solutions in just one place, in one district, working with local businesses and citizens to kind of start bottom up to identify the needs, solutions, and the infrastructure that we can support circular economy actions to happen systematically. So having recycling and reuse infrastructure, having access to green spaces and local food. And so, yeah, I'll share a link in the chat. We also really like this because this smaller scale allows a lower level of financing needed for circular neighborhoods. And it's an opportunity to kind of support the uptake of key solutions by, again, concentrating them all in one place. They're ultimately going to be built around local residents' knowledge, needs, and barriers. And that ultimately means that we're supporting a regenerative and inclusive transition that leaves no one behind, that doesn't leave communities or people or local businesses behind. There are some great examples of this across the 3 pathways that we identify. So starting small with individual spaces or circular hubs, working with existing communities and areas that are in need of retrofit and reimagining, and then starting from the design principle, the third, in developing whole new city developments. And we can point to examples in Mexico City, community gardens and barter markets there. We can point to I think it's the Rwanda Institute of Conservation Agriculture, that's like a fantastic new development in Kigali. And then obviously there's Barrios Vitales in Bogota. We have lots of these examples, so I'll be sure to share the link. But I think you've now heard enough from me. So what I'll do is I'd like to introduce Dr. Shirley Malema, who is an environment specialist, a senior professional officer for the city of Cape Town, to present some of the world-leading work that Cape Town is doing. If Shirley is here.
Thanks, Josh. So we had some issues with Shirley before with her internet connection, so I hope that it will work. Are you with us, Shirley?
Perhaps if we get her slides up, I can see that she's online.
Yeah. Sorry for this setback. Can you speak, Shirley? We can't hear anything. I suggest maybe that we move directly to Sao Paulo and that we try to solve this issue afterwards. So maybe we also had an issue with the speaker from Sao Paulo, but we have a really nice video that they put together on the circular economy and more specifically on the food sector. So I suggest that we start the video, and in the meantime, we try to solve this issue and to have Shirley speaking for Cape Town.
Os desafios para uma cidade de 12 milhões de habitantes, a maior cidade da América Latina, que tem 30% do seu território como território rural, é imenso.
As cadeias que estão criadas e que estão disponíveis são muito nocivas ao meio ambiente.
A gente sempre teve essa vontade de produzir orgânico, mas nunca teve alguém concreto, né, para poder estar entendendo nessa parte difícil de conversão.
Não tinha como escoar a mercadoria, né? Como a planta vai poder plantar orgânico, sempre para quem oferecer, né?
Apesar de ser muito próximo da cidade, o território rural aqui fica a 40 quilômetros do centro, é um desafio enorme você escoar essa produção, organizar, fazer o planejamento e ter uma possibilidade de adequação ao mercado que é bastante complexo para uma agricultura que é a agricultura familiar. E tem uma questão também que tem a ver muito com a política pública local, né, do que é feito para orientar e fortalecer esses agricultores.
Vários produtores têm inércia produtiva, mas ainda não acessam, pelo volume que produzem, redes de supermercado e nem as redes tradicionais de comercialização.
Em cada etapa desse caminho existem pequenos desperdícios. Além disso, na preparação, no processamento, na embalagem, tentar usar esse resíduo de uma forma que seja transformada de novo em alimento. São Paulo tem uma singularidade que é a zona rural, justamente. A gente está falando de um recorte de zona rural sul de São Paulo, que é uma zona de mananciais hídricos que abastece 1/3 da população de São Paulo. Então você precisa pensar na conservação ambiental dessas áreas para continuar com essas águas. Você tem uma questão de vulnerabilidade social e uma possibilidade de um consumo local para essa produção que nasce aqui nesse território.
Essa área aqui é uma área de produção de alimentos, né? Nós plantamos aqui já desde quase uns 30 anos, né, que a gente produz aqui nessa chácara, né?
A principal missão do projeto Liga os Pontos é essa consolidação do ambiente rural. A gente está falando de conservação ambiental, a gente está falando de produção, de melhorar a produção e a gente está falando de manter a população no ambiente rural com as características rurais. A estratégia do projeto é fortalecer essa agricultura de base, é criar possibilidades dentro da cadeia de valor e evidenciar isso com dados reais, né, e oficiais para fomentar políticas públicas que olhem para esse território e trabalhem em prol dessa consolidação.
A produção era convencional. E convencional, o material que a gente compra é super caro, né? Adubo, defensivo, assim, e não tem valor, assim, no comércio, né? Fora que fazia muito mal pra gente, né? Para quem aplicava, né?
O projeto ele tem uma equipe de técnicos que estão no campo fazendo assistência técnica individualizada com os produtores rurais aqui do território, fomentando a transição da agricultura convencional para a agricultura agroecológica, ou seja, diminuindo a questão dos insumos sintéticos e introduzindo insumos orgânicos de forma demonstrativa para que o produtor entenda que é possível fazer essa agricultura e ter essa transição de uma forma muito tranquila.
O projeto veio numa excelente hora, eliminou, né, o uso de agrotóxico, está sendo muito bom.
Os produtos de parelheiros, eles têm diversos destinos. O primeiro é na porta do produtor, na sua casa. Tem produtores que vendem aqui em vendas locais, tem as cestas, os produtores que formam as suas cestas para grupos de consumo diretos. Muitos produtores fazem feiras também. E também tem as compras públicas. Programa de Aquisição de Alimentos, o PNAE, Programa Nacional de Alimentação Escolar, são algumas das estratégias que a gente usa com os produtores também para que possam acessar esses programas, além de acessar os mercados privados também, interessados em comprar produtos orgânicos, produtos locais, de qualidade, produtos que a cidade quer comprar. A grande maioria, ou talvez a totalidade da produção local de parelheiros, ela é consumida pela cidade de São Paulo. E é uma produção que não alcança a demanda de São Paulo.
O Instituto Feira Livre tem como missão popularizar o acesso a alimentos sem agrotóxicos. Ser uma alternativa para esses produtores, principalmente aqueles que escolheram produzir numa matriz que seja regenerativa no campo. que não tem escala para acessar redes de supermercados, mas que tem escala para acessar o Instituto Feira Livre. Aqui a gente tem um formato muito específico de consumo. Em cada um dos preços consta preço do produtor. Isso quer dizer que a gente faz questão de que você saiba quanto o produtor cobrou da gente. E isso faz com que ele consiga planejar melhor como que é a lavoura, sabendo que já existe um espaço de comercialização e a gente consegue dizer daquilo que poderia ser melhor ou novos produtos que ele pode desenvolver. Então a gente tem uma troca muito maior até para o planejamento da lavoura.
Comprar de parelheiros e da Cooperapas, que é a cooperativa existente no sul de São Paulo, é muito legal. É muito diferente do modelo de compra que os outros restaurantes têm. O Rutella é um restaurante situado na Vila Madalena, em São Paulo. É um restaurante que eu gosto de falar que é comida de produto. Quem dita o que está no prato não sou eu. Não sou eu que ligo para o agricultor e falo, ó, preciso de morango, de framboesa e de cogumelo shiitake. É um caminho inverso. Eles mostram aquilo que eles estão produzindo. A partir daquilo que eles estão produzindo, a gente vai montar o nosso menu, o nosso cardápio.
A do Local é uma empresa de delivery de comida saudável, orgânica, que vende uma produção familiar e é preparada por mulheres empreendedoras em Paraisópolis. Os pedidos para os agricultores de Parelheiros são feitos a partir de uma lista dos vegetais disponíveis naquele momento.
A gente recebe uma lista 2 vezes por semana, com cerca de 30, 40 produtos, e essa lista é o reflexo daquilo que está sendo plantado. E cada semana é uma semana, cada semana tem um produto novo.
As nossas receitas, elas são construídas já com esse conceito, né, de aproveitar o que o agricultor tem no campo, porque isso deixa os orgânicos mais saborosos e mais baratos.
A gente tem que mandar o pedido com 24 horas de antecedência, ou seja, eles vão colher aquilo horas antes de chegar no restaurante. Eles chegam em caixas, a granel, fora de plástico. Os legumes, as folhas, as ervas chegam vivas. Você consegue ver, parece que ela tá na terra ainda. E é muito bacana que você sabe que o dinheiro que você está pagando vai para o agricultor. Você vê que tem famílias por trás do alimento. Diferente da maneira convencional que se usa para comprar ingredientes, que você não tem a transparência, você não tem o traceback, você não consegue saber para onde está indo o seu dinheiro, quais são as práticas dessas pessoas. Você vê que a proximidade é ganha-ganha para todo mundo.
A gente escolheu mulheres que moram em periferias para serem as cozinheiras do local, para que a gente trouxesse a oportunidade onde ela normalmente não chega. E a gente escolheu a periferia também por ser essa característica de uma cidade grande, da periferia estar muito próxima aos grandes centros de distribuição. Elas são cozinheiras parceiras, elas não são nossas funcionárias. Então você vê cada uma delas planejando aumentar sua cozinha, planejando comprar um eletrodoméstico novo, pedindo para cozinhar mais, acompanhando os seus indicadores de performance. Isso é uma coisa que nunca antes foi permitido para que essas mulheres pudessem sequer sonhar.
Transformou a minha vida primeiro fazendo eu descobrir que eu sou uma cozinheira, uma coisa que eu não sabia, essa profissão que eu tanto estou amando fazer. Eu poder cuidar da minha família, ter o meu próprio dinheiro, poder fazer o que eu quero com os meus filhos.
Isso para mim é uma revolução. Você quebra as paredes que fazem ela acreditar que não é para ela ascender economicamente, sair de uma situação de vulnerabilidade financeira e com isso sair de diversas outras vulnerabilidades.
Poder estar trabalhando dentro da comunidade com comida orgânica, coisa que não se fala muito, é algo muito positivo e dá trabalho para as mulheres também da comunidade, mães, avós, isso é muito bom.
A gente teve um aumento de produtores que eram antes convencionais, que tinham uma agricultura convencional, entrando na transição agroecológica e passando até a serem produtores orgânicos. Então, substituição de insumos sintéticos por insumos orgânicos, redução de pegada de carbono com as distâncias trabalhando em circuitos curtos de entrega desse produto. Tudo isso são ganhos para o produtor que refletem na permanência no campo e também buscando essa produção mais adequada ao ambiente onde eles estão.
Toda a produção sem agrotóxicos, em qualquer espaço de São Paulo que começa uma comercialização, tem demanda latente. Isso por uma razão muito clara, né? A população vem se informando cada vez mais sobre o que consome. E como o Brasil é uma referência mundial da produção de agricultura com agrotóxicos, as pessoas estão mais preocupadas com isso. Então, ao estarem mais preocupadas, o mercado relacionado com alimentos sem agrotóxicos só faz crescer.
Você pensar
So that was an extract from this really inspiring video from Sao Paulo. So we see that Sao Paulo is really being active all across the stages of the food value chain, really trying to restore natural processes and regenerate nature. It's quite inspiring. It must be really challenging for such a huge city. So my colleague Maria Alonso will be able to reply to questions related to Sao Paulo. She's worked with the city, I believe. Before that, I'd like to give a last try for Shirley, maybe to give to share our experience for Cape Town. So, Shirley, are you with us? So we learned just before that there were some power cuts in South Africa, making it sometimes harder to connect to the internet. Shirley, can you hear us? Yes, we'll share the recording of the event. So it looks like Shirley is not able to participate. That's a real pity, but at least we'll share her slides. I think she has a really interesting slide deck. And so I suggest to move directly to the question and answer session. So the idea will be first for participants to ask questions. So you can either write your question in the chat, or if you like, open up your mic and ask your question directly to the speakers. So either to Igor from Maribor, either to Mia and Tessa from Espo, also to Maria for Sao Paulo, to Josh also, or myself if you like. And we also have questions ourselves. The idea is to have a discussion. So if you also like to share your experience, especially in relation to what's happening in Latin America or in Africa, you're more than welcome to do so, since we don't have Shirley's testimony. Yeah, so if you have any question, please let us know. You can unmute yourself normally. So we've got questions on the chat. So could you talk about any relevant urban mining projects? That's a difficult question. Are you able to answer to that, Josh? Outside of Tokyo? That's a tricky one.
I am not an expert in urban mining. I do know colleagues that have worked in Sweden on projects, and I believe Oslo have some kind of coordinated partnership between all of the agencies that need access to roads, with the idea that by working together whenever they're doing maintenance, for example, on water pipes or internet cables, they can share the costs and then access often what is quite a rich, like, latent amount of things like copper. I think when it comes to other sorts of urban mining, I don't know much more than that. But if there is demand, we could, I'm sure someone in the call can also look to it. I believe, what's it? Where are they called? I'll write in the chat the university that I think have done some work on this. Might be interesting to look at.
Yeah. As a complement, I know that we are working with some European cities. We'll also try to assess the type of construction materials in the stock of buildings in different cities. but I wonder to what extent they are effectively using those construction materials. So that's a good question. If we have any expert, you can share also your opinion in the chat. Do we have any other question? So we've got one question from Anna for Espo. So Tessa or Mia, so the question is, I'm wondering how is Espo enabling circularity in the high number of new buildings being developed currently? Is circularity addressed in the design and deconstruction? That's a good point.
Yeah. So I partly answered this question already in the chat. I think the part of like how new buildings are looking into circularity, and I shared a link as well to we have what's called a GERA development commitment, which is annexed to the land use agreement, and it kind of all the landowners in the area will sign that, and it has goals, not specific goals, because we see that if we set a goal for example, like energy efficiency, the area will be built for the next 30 years. So if we say like, oh, the energy efficiency level needs to be this, it'll be way old before we hit that 30-year mark. Also, we didn't want to kind of say that, oh, you need to use these and these materials, because we feel like the innovations go forward so quickly that we can't really predict what's going to be available to us. But there's a link to it, and you'll be able to see what the development commitment is all about. It's more about like you have to use circular solutions, you have to use clean new solutions, you need to work in cooperation, and before they start building or before they even get a building permit, they need to show us a development plan of how they're going to meet these goals. You've also asked about the design and deconstruction of the new buildings. So this, I'm not sure if it slightly relates to urban mining as well, is what we've done. We had a competition for how to reuse building parts as a whole. So rather than actually demolishing the whole building and then using such as crushed concrete, which is something we've done as well, we're looking into how we can take full building parts away and use them in new builds. I can put a link to the article on like how that competition went and what the solutions that come out of it, where a lot of things from thinking of buildings as resource banks and doing what's it called in English, the BIM models from the parts, or even building a whole new daycare out of used building parts. So these are things that we are looking to do at the moment. And even though a lot of them are pilots or they're experiments, it's all about like not piloting things, but changing the way we are doing things. So some of the things we're doing for the first time, but like the development commitment, it's already in the strategy that it's going to be scaled up to other areas in Espoo. So yeah, hopefully that answers some of the questions.
Thank you, Tessa. It's actually also an answer to the question from Katerina, who asked, how do you see a circular economy systemic change is possible to achieve? It seems we are able to work at small scale, but how to scale it up in a city? So I think, yeah, it's a good response to this, Tessa, because you're not working only on Kera, not only on one pilot city, but on all developments happening in the city. So it's really about embedding circularity across all actions and not only one. So it's a challenge. Yeah, I can tell from Miglev's perspective that it's not easy to achieve, but we are seeing cities really trying to act more systematically across Europe. But it's a big challenge once again. One question from Olga.
Sorry, Simon, maybe if I could come in as well
sure.
on that, just to stress that I think part of the neighborhoods article that we published was to stress the importance of this small scale activity, and that at the moment we are seeing a patchwork, as I mentioned in my presentation, of demonstrations, often across cities. So like there's some really great lighthouse projects or flagships. Our proposition is through the neighborhoods is linking these small scale individual solutions in one place with the idea that actually we can kind of identify what that future system should look like. I'm not sure who's on. Maybe they're inspired by me. But yeah, so and I think if we by concentrating and putting multiple projects in one place, we can actually get to that future state we want to get to quicker and identify how we can then replicate or scale or at least learn from those things. I would also say on the just a general point about the systems, we are talking about, when we talk about the circular economy, the economy. And if we actually really want to change how materials flow, we need to think about how we incentivize and disincentivize certain activities. And so that we therefore need to confront like the need for more economic incentives, using fees, levies in a different and more creative way. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way yet, and we need to develop blueprints. But I think from the Circular Cities Declaration report, we can see that of the 10 actions that we set out for cities to follow, confidence on economic incentives is much lower than in other places. And so this is an area that we all need to work together on to kind of innovate and figure out new models. And there are lots of examples, but I will stop there.
Great, thank you, Josh. If we have any African participants, it would be great to hear from your experiences on circular economy. Otherwise, we've got a series of interesting questions. So there is one from Olga, who's developing a reuse and share guidebook with practical steps. And she's asking about reuse hubs. And she'd like to know who are the most advanced cities at the moment on this. So from the CCD report that we did, we know that there are many advanced cities in different parts of Europe, but often with a different perspective, which I find quite interesting. But I would say that cities from Flanders, for instance, from the Netherlands, also some cities from Finland, from Sweden, also have all really interesting examples of reuse hubs. So I would recommend you to have a look at the CCD report and you'll find those really interesting examples. Then we've got another question from a PhD student in industrial engineering. Maybe you'd like to reply to the first one, Josh?
Yes, please, if that's okay. I think on reuse, I'm not sure if what you mean, but I will put in the chat quickly now a reuse playbook, at least on packaging, that our friends at Upstream in the North America have published. This is really useful for figuring out what to do on plastic packaging. On just to build on your example, Simon, on reuse, I've just got back from the circular economy hotspot that Dublin hosted, and I went on a tour yesterday of the Rediscovery Centre, which is maybe the best example of the circular economy I've ever been in and seen in. And they have reuse programs on bikes, paint, furniture, and textiles, and they have a proof of concept of all of these things that they are revenue generating. It's a mix of public project funds because it provides support for those on long-term unemployment, but actually they're being able to use the skills to create, I mean, yeah, just recycle paint, and manufacturers have not done this. So they're able to sell paint, high quality, at a lower cost in a competitive place. The Rediscovery Centre, we will be doing something on it soon, as I was amazed by it, but I'll share it in the chat.
Great, thanks a lot, Josh. So there was this question from a PhD student who asked how cities actually can manage to combine, on the one hand, European policies, such as the Circular Economy Action Plan, the chemical strategy, the biodiversity strategy, and so on, with municipal strategies. Like, how really do you manage to articulate the two to embed European ambition and more like municipal vision and objectives? So interesting question for either Espo or maybe Maribor, because you're both working a lot with European projects. And so you have to combine like the local political agenda with the European agenda in a sense.
Yeah, basically, it's not that complicated, you know. It's you have to kind of combine all together. So you go top down, bottom up, and you see where the territory actually meets and what are the needs. So the mapping exercise is the base for implementation of this policies into the local content. We are doing it right now for the regional scale, so it's not so complicated, to be honest. But the main important thing to know is that there is no one shoe fits all approach. So it's from the territory to territory, it will be different. For example, in our first project that I talked about, we had 5 cities basically from the Alpine region, different territories, and we came up with 5 completely different strategies, because you have to address the local needs or the regional needs. It depends on for which level you are doing, and you can then integrate the European policies into it. You will not integrate all of them because they are not all relevant for your territory, because you have different I don't know, natural resources, waste streams, and so on and so on. And of course, you have also different level of understanding of the people in the territory, what circular economy is and how it works and what should be done and so on. So basically, every strategy is custom made. You can learn from the process, you can learn from the results, you can learn what KPIs are used and so on, but you have to do your work. You cannot copy paste it. And this is the lesson we learned quite early, and we are willing and we are sharing this knowledge. We can help, but you have to do the work yourself. And in our case, it really helps to open up the process, to kind of let also the stakeholders do the strategy with you. So it's not, you know, administration doing something, but you have to get open with this, because through that, the stakeholders get the ownership, and then the actions implementation, which follows the strategy, usually it's easier because you already have a stakeholder group who can do some startup things. It's not that complicated really, but you have to do the work. It's not, you know, like you can do something past some steps. You have to take all the steps basically. But it's not that difficult. So just go for it.
Thank you, Igor. Tessa, would you like to add something?
Thanks, Simon, and thanks, Igor. I absolutely agree with you. I think what we've learned as well is that this not one shoe does not fit all is very much in our key learnings as well. So you need to kind of pick and choose what of the strategies are those that are most relevant to you. Obviously, you're not going to leave anything behind, but some things you will be able to concentrate more on. And I think there was a comment here about like how it's more about neighborhoods and not cities. And I think even on that level, that's something we've recognized. So whatever we've done in Gera, it's quite a unique area, that it's like an old industrial area and it will be rebuilt. That's obviously not the case with most of the cities. So what it is, it's about recognizing those kind of individual specialties of each district and seeing where the time is ripe for what solutions and what are the best fit or for which area. So you can't just take this, you can take learnings from other projects, but you can't just take the models and kind of force them onto areas. You need to look into what's the best. So in some area, they might be they're looking into a new energy solution. That's where we will put our force into then. Or another area might be looking into how you make new build circular. Some area might have a lot of demolition or road work happening, or somewhere you just need kind of general support for circular actions in everyday life. So yeah, it's really, like Igor said, doing the work, going through all the documents and seeing what are the ones where you need to put your effort into for your city and your neighborhood as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Tessa. Do we have any other questions? Maybe also I try one last time with Shirley, whether you're able to finally join or not. No, but we've got a question from Alison. So please ask your question, Alison.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, I did put it in the chat, but I just wanted to check if internationally, if anyone has noticed that the black soldier fly industry is starting to feature at all in terms of adding value to organic waste, increasing that circularity and strengthening the animal feed and pet feed value chains. Because in Cape Town, that seems to be growing and it's very exciting for us. So we just wondered if that had featured anywhere else.
So it's not a topic I know well personally, I must admit. I don't know if any of our speakers, which are mostly European, sadly, know anything about the black soldier fly industry.
Maybe,
Oh, go on. Sorry.
sorry. No, Josh, you started first. So
No, I was just going to observe that I think we have a number of case studies on our website about where we're seeing this happen. Yeah. Other than knowing that it's an alternative, lower cost, lower initial input cost versus other ways of managing food waste. I think it's a really exciting tool in the toolbox for managing that part of the circular economy for food.
yeah, there were several initiatives ongoing, and we will include them in the strategy that we are developing. So it's one of the potential developments that we are closely observing, but I cannot share any concrete results or anything that will help you in this moment further. But down the road, I think this is one of the maybe one of the solutions, for the issues that we have on this topic.
Thanks a lot. So we have some interesting links in the chat, especially my colleague Karis, who shared a case study that ICLE made on the black soldier fly as a waste management alternative in Indonesia. So really interesting. We are exploring Asia now. So we haven't had any question for Sao Paulo, but if you'd like to know more about the circular economy in Brazil, maybe in Latin America, you can also ask questions. My colleague Maria will be happy to answer your questions. All right, so I also have questions, incidentally, so maybe I can start with my own questions to the speakers. I guess the first thing that I saw in common in all of the examples is that you all benefited from a strong political mandate, that you were supported by the mayor, by the council, and so on. So could you give like some explain how you managed to really get this mandate and how you managed to get the councillors, the mayor on board to really back you in the implementation of first to develop a strategy, but then to implement the different strategy circular economy actions. So could apply to either Maribor or Espoo, or maybe Sao Paulo if you have any information on this, Maria. Yeah,
In this
Mia.
case, ladies first.
Thanks. Well, for my part, I started working at the city organization in 2019. So the work has definitely for enabling the mandate and the city strategies, it has started already way before that. For a long period of time, the political interest and the decision making has been guiding the city towards we had like this slogan of the most sustainable city in Europe. So that's been something that's been ongoing for a long time, I'd say. But circular economy has then, like later on, been closely linked with our other goals, such as the carbon neutrality goal of 2030 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's sort of like something that it's linked very strongly for those. But it's been a long-term work for us too, though, especially with when it comes to the climate goals and the carbon neutrality. It's that the shift to circular economy, even though it can be linked directly there, and also what Josh mentioned, it's related to more than 10 the Sustainable Development Goals. So coming to social topics as well, and so on, not only environmental. Even though, yeah, what I wanted to say that that like when it comes to the environmental part, for example, not all of the carbon reductions, for example, show immediately. So, but in long term, so it's sort of a work to sort of how would I say that to sort of make that change visible in a way that that we sort of, even though the link is there, you also have to sort of like make it visible so that we sort of justify the existence of the transition to a circular economy and all of the benefits. And I think in the beginning or like years back, it was mostly about the waste handling and waste management. So now with the years, I've seen all around, not saying just at the city organization, but all over when we talked with companies, with different stakeholders, it's now moving beyond definitely the waste management part and moving to a whole systemic transformation and transition.
Thank you, Mia.
In our case, it was basically a combination of few things coming together. Mayor back then, when we started, had really holistic view of the world, which helped. And circular economy proposal that we came up with was quite close to what his thoughts about how the things should be organized was, you know, in sync with his vision. So on the other hand, we were looking for some solutions in the system of the utility companies, which was not really working in a way, and this not working kind of manifested it in higher costs of the services. So the idea is to kind of, you know, not have a cost with the material, but we were looking how to turn costs into the benefits. And the utility companies then went for this. So it was a combination of this. And once this came to the city council, there was basically not a vote against it. So city council confirmed the strategy in 2018, and it's still valid. So things go on. We will probably make an update shortly. If not this year, then next year, because things developed further, and it will be good to renew a bit things, add some chapters that maybe were missing at the beginning, because we started with 6, then we went to 7, now 8 is basically already there, which is not included, but we are working on it. And we talked about the climate changes and adaptation to this, but we have to talk a bit more now with these updates because things are really turning also here. I don't know how it's in Finland, but we just had 3 weeks of rain and flooding and landslides here in our region. So some of the municipalities have the damages in the height of their yearly budget, especially the small ones, and this is not sustainable in the long term. So we have to do things differently. And unfortunately, the nature is telling us this now. Politicians usually don't listen to the experts when they are talking about this, but when it comes to the costs and then things are getting worse, then they started thinking about it and listening. And hopefully this will be then the trigger to kind of do the changes also here and update and upgrade and move forward.
Thank you, Igor. We've got 2 new questions in the chat that's also really interesting. One is about best practices in either Latin America or Africa. That shows a different perspective on resources, a different cultural understanding of resources. I wonder if this is something that you can maybe try to reply to, Maria, with examples from Latin America.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Personally, we don't work with countries in Africa or Latin America ourselves, but we are in close partnership with the different ICLAI offices both South America and Africa. In terms of Sao Paulo, which is what the city have shared with us before this webinar, I have to say that it is clear that there is many circular food initiatives and good practices that were shared in the video that we just saw, and that we think are indeed contributing to generating this regenerative economy and is moving away from extraction and more into regeneration. I would say the main thing to highlight, or the main focus, are the efforts of the city of Sao Paulo, but also the country, to move from these conventional forms of agriculture into more agroecological and organic practices. And the city, for example, is doing this through different international projects, but also municipal legislations that are in place, which, for example, support that X amount of organic produce for public procurement in the city is actually sourced from family agriculture or small-scale farmings that support organic practices. So there is many different practices to showcase along the continent. And if you stay tuned, in the next month, we're going to disclose a series of handbook, both in Portuguese and in Spanish, where you would find more information about some of these practices all over the continent related to circular food initiatives.
Thanks a lot, Maria. Then we've got also really interesting questions on the link between circular economy and traditional knowledge. So it's not an easy one. I can try maybe to reply by saying that in the built environment, vernacular architecture, so using traditional construction techniques, traditional materials, can be a way to reduce the environmental footprints of buildings and can also be connected to circular economy. I'm not an expert of it myself, so I won't be able to tell more, but I would find it interesting to explore the links between vernacular architecture and circular construction. I wonder if any of the speakers do know more about the traditional knowledge and the links with circular economy.
In our case here in Slovenia, is this in rural areas, not in urban areas, is quite well connected. So the knowledge, goes on. People knew back then where to build, how to build, not to be in the, let's say, danger zones from the nature forces. Now with the urbanization, we got a bit out of this way. So the cities have the challenge for the future, how to deal with this. But in rural areas, this is still alive and well working, especially in the smaller communities. In the food sector, there is quite traditionally circular economy present because they reuse more or less everything, but I think the main challenge for this knowledge to be implemented is in the urban areas. So the rural areas in Slovenia work quite fine. The urban areas are where the challenges and the really issues are handling. Because, for example, in our case, they built sewage system with smaller pipes that are actually needed. So with every heavy raining or something like that, the water comes out on the street level. So it's not really working well. And this is due to the, let's say, planning, which not includes these climate changes and all of this. That's why I'm saying there is plenty more to do, especially in the urban areas. Rural are fine, not the super fine, but fine, and they are using these things on the daily basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Igor. Maybe Tessa, if you'd like to add something. And then I saw really interesting comments in the chat from Debbie from New Zealand. So if you'd like to share also what you think, if you'd like to, speak, that would be also really interesting, because the idea is to compare trajectories across regions. So that would be great to hear from you. Maybe Tessa first, and then Debbie, if you'd like to add something.
Thank you, Simon. I think can agree with what Igor said. Also, I think when talking about circular economy, it's really important to kind of especially when we're communicating to people who aren't very knowledgeable on circular economy, to say that it's not this like new trend or a new fad that we came up with and something that before we were linear and now we want to be circular. I think we really need to remember that, at least in Finland, till the 1920s, the whole economy was circular. The way to do things was circular. We've only had dumps for the last 100 years, and now we're moving away from them. So actually, the kind of the time frame of linear economy is quite short in the history of humankind. And I think when we're communicating about circular economy, we need to remember all the good things we're already doing and things that are like quite imprinted in the way that we're working. Like here in Finland, the public libraries are very, very popular and a good example of circular economy. They also rent out games, instruments. You can even rent out a drill if you need to from the library. Very core circular economy, but a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think that. Also, just the way our grandmothers used to do things, like remembering of, oh yeah, they used to make very good quality clothes and they would fix them instead of throwing them away. Just remembering kind of those even small things that are very much in practice still nowadays, and just communicating about like, this is the thing that we're meant to be doing. Like, obviously not reverting back to pre-industrial revolution, but in a way channeling our inner grandparents as well in the way of doing things. So yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of good things to be learned from the older generations and kind of update it into the new day as well. Like we have public saunas in Finland, and we have shared saunas. Like the apartment building I live in, we only have one sauna and everybody has their own turn in it. So a very Finnish example on circular economy there.
Nice. Thanks a lot, Tessa. Debbie, would you like to share something on New Zealand and traditional
Sure.
architecture? Excellent.
Can you
Thank
hear me
you.
okay?
Absolutely.
Cool. So I think one of the things that we've learned by exploring this conversation with the Indigenous people of New Zealand is they have the very similar concepts that are embedded in the heart of how they think. They're systems thinkers. They think intergenerationally. The timeframes they consider are much longer than our really fast cycles for our auditing reports, our annual reports, our political cycles. They see themselves as stewards and guardians of the land, not owners of the land. So they have a completely different view of assets and the purpose of assets, and they measure success very differently. So in a much more holistic way. So yes, this laser focus that we've had on our economy is really interested in dollars and GDP, but a Māori worldview considers value to the community much differently. So they would be inherently thinking in the 6 capitals: knowledge economy, social economy. How are we enabling future generations to flourish? So I think we have a lot to learn from different worldviews. So that's my experience in New Zealand. I would imagine that it's broadly similar in other Indigenous communities where they are deeply embedded in nature. Their connection to nature is much stronger. And now we're coming back to that thinking ourselves. I mean, we've spent a week in Amsterdam. We've been here in Finland for the conference, and repeatedly we're hearing biodiversity, interrelationships with other systems. It's not just about the economy. The economy is embedded in the natural systems, the social systems, and the knowledge systems. So for us, we have a lot to learn from Indigenous populations because they think like that already. So how do we not only share the good stuff that unpacking the circular economy can benefit from, but actually deeply, deeply listen and see where we can find points of integration. So that's just some thoughts. I did drop an image in the chat, because what we've been trying to do is work with communities and clients in New Zealand, because they're under pressure, not just to incorporate circular economy thinking, but to grapple with climate change, to incorporate Indigenous perspectives, and then how do we actually create social and economic benefit in this transition? So we're not natural systems thinkers, even in our organizations, we're very siloed, and circular economy work happens often in the boundaries between departments, between different actors in a city or a system. So I think we have a lot to learn about getting a little bit more comfortable with the messy systemic elements, and that's where we're really wanting to learn and grow our capability in that space. So we're not saying we have all the answers, but we're asking different questions, and that's what the framework was designed to do, was to start asking. The linear economy's had hundreds of years to ask its questions. The circular economy is a little bit later. So now we have to embrace those challenges.
Thanks a lot, Debbie. That's really nicely said and really inspirational. So thanks a lot.
Sure.
And I see that Shirley is now connected. Can you hear us, Shirley? Because I can see your screen, but maybe you can't hear me. No, that was fake hope. Well, so I suggest to have one last question to our speakers, maybe for each of them, for each of the city, to highlight one key challenge and how you succeeded to maybe overcome this challenge, to give practical recommendations for other cities, for other participants on how to implement the circular economy, and maybe embed it within other systems as Debbie explained it.
We go agenda order or?
As you like, feel free.
Okay, then I will start. Well, if I think back, basically this was completely new concept that was, in 2015, 16, when we started, not even European Commission was talking much about it. And convincing, enough people to gain this basic group of stakeholders was really a good thing. But I would recommend at the beginning the small steps. So don't aim too high, just take a small step, small victories. Do some small activities and then build on that, because through that you will be able to kind of sustainably grow what you are doing. So don't go, I don't know, completely out of the way, but just start slowly, take a steps, but take a lot of steps, and they can be quick ones, but they should be small ones, and then things will grow, and people will, with the implementation of good examples, see that things are working, and they will join in and start working with you and developing things. This is our experience, and it brought us so far now.
Start small, think big. Maybe some recommendations from Espoo and Sao Paulo, maybe?
Well, what Igor said was actually very, very onto the point. It's also what we sort of experienced, in a way that that what I explained about us first trying to sort of solve all of the circularity activities and issues that might be going on in the city, and what we could develop and so on. So there was a time that we sort of realized that we need more resources to be able to sort of like solve and accelerate the transition. So it's sort of a it's a shift in the mindset. It's a shift in procurements and what we buy, what we like handle as well. I mentioned the waste handling. What was sort of the something that or the start point in many conversations. So it's about moving from there to the origin, to how what we get, what we need actually, and so on. So there's just a lot in between, a lot of areas in circular economy where to focus on. So therefore, that was sort of the wide range of topics was one of the challenges that we faced, and our sort of a solution for that has been to sort of choose the topics that we are focusing on. Does Tessa have any more topics or practical examples that we would have?
No, I think I agree with both Igor and Mia with everything that has been said. And even if the steps are small, remember to tell people about them. I think we've we doing cross-organizational work. And even we are the Sustainable Development Unit. Every once in a while, we come across these people in the city who are doing very circular actions, very good work, but they're doing it very alone, and they feel like they're being very alone in it. And we're like, we love those moments because we're able to help them. We're able to give them more support. So talk about what you're doing, even if it's small things, do communications, do articles, do whatever, so that people know what you're doing and can be inspired by your work. And then you will find the community around you. And I think cooperation is key, both with our stakeholders, the companies that work in Espoo, our residents, within the city as well, breaking those silos. So that's where the strength lies, because nobody can do this by themselves, not even the city of Espoo or any other city. So yeah, that would be my main takeaways today.
Thank you. And maybe the final word for you, Maria.
Yes. So what our colleagues from the ICLEI South American Secretariat have shared with us is that oftentimes, in the context of the Global South at least, circular initiatives can face the challenge of having the lack of infrastructure or maybe long-term political support. And many international projects that the city have been working with are focusing very much on piloting. So while I think everybody acknowledges the importance of pilots, in the case of, bless you, of Sao Paulo, the success factor to overcome this challenge actually was that the political commitments regarding circularity were prioritized. So by institutionalizing policies, it proved very successful for the city to allow a continuation of the circular food initiatives that we've seen in the video for many years. And actually allowed the city to ensure that this legislation would stay over political terms. So thanks to many municipal legislation that the city have passed, such as the municipal program to combat food waste and loss, I think that's how you would roughly translate it. It's actually making it easy for the city to gain experience and actually be able to mentor other smaller cities around the country and to be able to replicate what works in terms of circular food economy to other cities. So I would say that was one of the main challenges that were mentioned and how they overcome it.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So I think we've come to the end of this webinar. So I think that was really interesting. I hope that it was also useful for participants. We have two upcoming events next week, so we'll share the slide and we'll see. But I think the discussion is only starting now on circular economy in cities. If you're interested in the Circular Cities Declaration, if you'd like to join or only to know more about it, you're more than welcome to approach us. It's for free. And it was great to see all of those practical tips, recommendations on what to do at the local level, because we talk a lot about circular economy, but really about cities and the role that they have on circular economy. So thanks a lot to all speakers for your great presentations. It's a pity that we didn't have in the end Shirley from Cape Town, but yeah, I hope that next time we'll have a great testimony from Cape Town. Thanks a lot to all of you, and thanks a lot to the participants.